Yes, good afternoon to you all. Unfortunately, I have to deliver this in English. I realize it's a Russian-speaking audience over here, but bear with me, and I'm sure the translation is as good as I have been hearing myself. So it's your turn to have the earpieces over here. At the outset, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me here. I know Middle East is a bit far away market for you, but I guess the interest here is to have a dialogue or exchange of ideas. Ultimately, or eventually, probably some of the insurance companies over here or investors over here would like to invest in either insurance or reinsurance companies in the Middle East, or do reinsurance business treaty or facultative with a couple of companies over here. The title is The Sleeping Giant, the MENA Insurance Markets. I purposely wanted to give an overall view so that you have an idea and appreciation of the MENA insurance markets instead of being focusing it on one. A little bit about definitions, because as my previous colleague has mentioned, what is MENA to you might not MENA to us. For us, MENA excludes Turkey. Turkey is a large market, but we do not classify Turkey as part of the Middle East, so that all the figures that you will be seeing in this presentation that I have excludes Turkey, which is a large contributor in the region. And of course, it includes all the countries that you see from east to west, east of Bahrain up to Morocco. And that's the classical definition that I will follow over here. I said here in the title, why do we see it as giant? Simply because there's a huge potential of the MENA insurance market. It's an untapped potential, which you will see through the following slides. What you see there on the diagram, maybe I'll use this one. Allow me, I'll use this one. Easier. What you see here in the diagram is basically the development of classically the gross written premium income from the years 2009, 2013. As you see, the region is booming, and we are now close to $29 billion in premium income. Of course, the life component is small compared to the non-life component, and that's what you see in yellow vis-a-vis what you see in grayish. If you look at some of the economical indicators to just benchmark where we are vis-a-vis other regions, you're talking about a population, which is the figure which is in gray, roughly 326 million inhabitants, not a lot. You're talking about a GDP in billions of close to 2.6 billion, that's 2013 figures, which again has been increasing. The line that you see in the red on the top is a trend line, and that sees the GDP per capita. And of course, if you look at the MENA region, and unlike Russia and Turkey, which are a single market, the MENA is composed of markets. There is not really a single large market. This is why we always group it to be in a MENA region. The variations in the GDP per capita really differ, and they go as high as $38,000 for what we call oil-producing countries, which is basically the GCC, and they reduce down to $3,000 for other sectors. If you average them out, that's where you get the overall figure. Some other indicators regarding the size, what you see there on the fourth line over here, 29 billion, as I said, is our gross written premium income with a population of 326. If you look at all of this, what I'm trying to convey to you, the MENA region, as I've defined, commands 3.5% of the world economy, 4.6% of the world population. The GDP capita is still 77% of the world average, which is still comparatively low compared to the potential. The sleeping giant, this is the breakdown by country. I chose the large countries, otherwise we'll have a large graph. And you can see the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, leads the Middle East markets, seconded by Saudi Arabia, and then the figures reduce. What is interesting to know here is the life component, and basically countries of Morocco, Egypt, and Lebanon have comparatively a large percentage of life portfolio compared to non-life portfolio, at least 30% if not higher. And this is an important trend. Overall, we have about 496 insurance companies, including 25 reinsurance companies. And those 25 reinsurance companies are what I call locally capitalized reinsurance operators in the region. A little bit about the economics over here. Macroeconomic fundamentals of the MENA region remains relatively attractive. There's accumulated reserves which enable them to address future economical risks, and the consumers are relatively strong. On the oil, obviously the decrease in this price of the oil last year has impacted the region, but still they enjoy a competitive advantage, and energy-related companies are obviously more affected than the others. Financial markets took a hit towards end of last year in reflection of the depressed oil prices, but despite what I just mentioned in terms of the financial, the economical situation, the number one concern is what you see at the end, the political. The challenge remains is the political instability continues to be a prevailing and the most urgent concern in the MENA region today, and this affects our markets. Now let me go and address in the title. I've explained to you what are the MENA and what is the markets, and now let's talk about the word, why is it sleeping? And of course, giant, I've just explained. It is sleeping because of these factors. I'll go through them. Some I have slides, some I'll just go verbally in the interest of time. First of all, low penetration. What you see here is demonstrates my points on the low penetration. We've split the MENA region into 3 sub-regions, which is the GCC, the Gulf, the Levant, as well as North Africa. And what you see here is a disparity of figures. What we call is the insurance penetration in the region. GCC enjoys the highest insurance penetration. Why? Because it has the lowest population and the highest disposable income over here. Whereas you look at the contrary of this, North Africa has a low percentage GDP figure. If you look at the red figure, this is what you call the insurance penetration, and what you see in the blue is the insurance density. The difference, obviously, you know, one is related to the percentage of the premium to the GDP, and one is the percentage to the population, or the division of the written premium income to the population. Of course, again, look at it deeper inside, the figures differ from a region to region. We are talking about an overall average of 1.1% insurance penetration, compared to 6.3%, which is the worldwide average. The advanced markets is about 8.3, and this by mean Germany, the USA, UK. Emerging markets is 2.7. So you see, it is still a long potential indeed. The figures translate also themselves into density, but you have it over there if you compare the similar things. Another characterization here is look at the different markets over here. The size of each bubble over here indicates the premium income. So you can go from Saudi Arabia 6.5 up to 2.1 in Morocco and so forth. And what is plotted here is the compounded premium growth access vis-a-vis the insurance penetration. And you see that there is a variation in the distribution from west to east, or let's say from left to right. You have the Egypt, which is very low compared to something which is more advanced if you look at Lebanon. This is the same chart that you see, but on the life side. The first one was the non-life side. This is why the figures, if you add them, you will get the same figures I showed earlier on. And here you see a similar, but maybe more condensed picture. The variation, that is to say, is not too pronounced. Number one factor, low insurance awareness. And I think this is a characteristic in almost any developing market that we happen to come across to. There is still a long way to go to preach insurance, to convince people, and to raise the level of insurance awareness. Reliance on state support, just like in Russia, there's a great reliance. Oil-based economies by far, and even for the non-oil-based, government plays a very critical role in the economy in terms of not just the construction, the expenditure, the spending, and so forth. Although the social welfare system is very much not tax-driven, but government-driven. Limited disposable income, with the exception of the GCC. They have a high disposable income per capita. Religious, cultural issues are still prevalent in the MENA region vis-a-vis insurance buying, but I'm glad to say that this has substantially reduced over the 10 years. And today, you have active companies who are addressing this particular hurdle. Low risk retention, let me demonstrate this to you for those who are in the reinsurance arena. This is what I mean by the low retention, which means what goes out by way of reinsurance. Roughly speaking, what you see here, and if you look just at the red line, blue line, 2012, I don't have the 2013, unfortunately, data, which is hard to compile. The figure is around 60%, which means out of $100 premium, 60 gets retained by the insurance companies, 40 gets retained by outside. And of course, it drops quite low in the GCC, which is the line in brown, because the GCC is very much energy-based, high valued, and this is why they're in excessive use of reinsurance support, principally facultative. Characteristically, the overall portfolio of the average company is about 40% motor, another 20% medical or health insurance, and another 20% property and engineering lines of business. Then they have the others. The only exception is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is about 65% medical and another 20% motor, which is a bit substantial. Portfolio composition have gone to original premium rates. The story remains the same, whether you're in Russia, whether you're in China, whether you're in the Middle East. Depressed original premium rates because principal reason, supply and demand. A lot of insurance companies for a market size, which is not huge by all standards. Staff expertise, HR development, I think this was also alluded to in the previous presentation. The Middle East is largely dependent on expatriate to transfer knowledge and know-how. And that puts limitations into the amount of development that one can engage to. Just have 3 slides. We all know what's the market potential, what can we do, and what is it in it for you in Russia. Well, from what I heard in the morning, you have enough issues on your hand right now to sort out in Russia, but nevertheless, the opportunity will definitely come. And there is already an active trade between the Middle East and Russia, and I'm sure insurance and reinsurance will follow. We are all executives over here, and we have to push this market forward. For the MENA region to gain a prominence just like Russia, there is a lot of similarities. We need to advance the corporate governance, the ERM, the security ratings of the region needs to be uplifted. Corporate issues, solvency margin, we're still definitely not in, we're almost solvency 1 and just coming into, okay, solvency 1 and let's say a quarter. We're far away from complying with anything on the 2, although RBC, risk-based capital, is kicking in, but at a moderate level. Supportive understanding boards remains to be a challenge because a lot of the companies over here are private companies, are family owned and family held. Mergers and acquisition, unlike what you see in the region, is not widely known in the region. That is why you see a large number of companies, and we don't get to see a lot of movement there. HR I've talked about. What can you do as reinsurers, or what can we all do as reinsurance to help the market? Pricing of the business becomes paramount, so that you see and you pre-underwrite and you decide which lines of business you want to go into. A new product development, again, that's a continuous task. The region has matured in terms of certain products, but it requires more and more, especially on the liability aspects. Risk selection, rebalancing the portfolio. As I said, on the insurance, you'll end up with a lot of motor and medical. So you have to rebalance on the reinsurance side. We are lucky, unlike Turkey, we don't have catastrophe exposures with the exception of Algiers. So you have a largely non-cat exposed markets, but premiums are small. So you need to find a balance as far as reinsurers are concerned. From risk shifter to true carriers, we have very high commission levels. Our average seeding company takes on the fire 37.5% commission, and some even take 45%, but the average is 37.5%. Very high, which leaves you a low margin. But I guess the commission is a function of the profits or expected profits. Going back to basics, well, this is ultimately the case. If you are faced with a situation where there is a lot of supply, there is a constant pressure linked to the last point for companies to deliver technical results, and this is an increasing trend. Interest rates are below 1-2%, the best company can achieve, so technical results is a must for it. Government is important. As I said, they play an important part. You have to lobby them. You have to ensure that their concerns are properly addressed. We have strong and emerging regulatory regimes, particularly in the UAE and Dubai as well, and in Bahrain. Impact on insurance, compulsory insurance. There is, like in Russia, what you hear, the need to have more compulsory and more national reinsurance companies. I personally believe we have enough, and the idea is to try to enforce and capitalize on what you have. Consumer awareness, it is, I think, evident over here. Industry body, you to know more about the Middle East companies and the ways and means of doing business. Just like coming here into Russia, we also have insurance conferences. The largest is the GAFE, the General Arab Insurance Federation. It happens once every 2 years. And the FAIR, which is the Federation of Afro-Asian Insurers and Reinsurers. Middle East is peculiar. It's both Asia and Africa. It's about 1.5. So we can play on both continents, so as to speak. Anyway, with that, I'll conclude my remarks, and thank you very much.